Okay, now that I have more experience with this trick, this is the update video, I promise. Basically outlining the main setup that I found for getting the wall run very consistently. Pretty much the only thing that this setup demands is that you get a near ideal pause hover from the bridge, which Divu has actually since shown is not necessary. You don't need that. But my setup doesn't work with that. So I'm just gonna go over what works for me. Um, I get I get that pause hover probably about 1 in 20 tries. And I'd say from there, if you have good consistency with buffering, as long as you get the hover, you should be able to pull off the strat with strong consistency. When I actually get the pause hover, I'm hitting this. I'd say I'm getting the skew over 50% of the time. So, going over the entire setup, I'm just going to use my video for reference here. To start out with this approach, uh, you want to swing in here. Timing is not important here because the cycle is super easy to make as long as you just hit the wall run. You can even get hit by this guy coming up and still make the cycle. It's not a big deal. So just focus on doing all the parts of the setup properly as opposed to trying to push your movement, which I know sounds counterproductive. Just focus on hitting the setup. That's hard enough as is. So coming up here, you want to start holding B as soon as you've passed by this guy. You can kill him or lock onto him, whatever. Uh, it doesn't matter. He goes out of draw distance regardless. But we hold B around here so that we can lock on to this enemy right here. This is really important for the setup to work. This is a big thing that I just repurposed from Chain Jump. I also recommend here kind of what I was alluding to too with focus on doing the setup over going fast. A lot of the times if you try to actually like take this optimally and you take like a good line through here and you like land on the crates and you're doing what you're supposed to, he'll just shoot you if you try to do that. And that's a pain. And you can salvage it, but it makes it harder. So honestly, I prefer just like trying to full hover over these boxes as much as I can. And then once I've full hovered over them, then I drop, and that makes it so that he usually misses. That way we can keep him locked on. And so we walk past him going in this left side. If you go too far right here, you'll lock onto the wrong things and you'll mess up the setup. You want to walk about in this area. It's not too precise. But you walk through this area and you lock on to 2, 3, and 4. And the order, as long as you're coming up here, will end up being the same way every time. But all that matters is just that you get these 3 canisters. And once you've got these 3 canisters, you can start looking to jump onto the rail here to set up our trick. And so we jump. Again, you have time. You don't have to focus on hyper optimizing it. I just jump hover onto this to make sure that I land on here every time. Um, and it's still kind of an annoying rail, so I mean, don't be mad if you miss it. But come up here onto this rail, and I do an extra pause here. This is not necessary, but basically what we're doing is we just go all the way up to the edge and do a pause hover. This pause hover, as you can see, is not perfect by any means. It's actually pretty sloppy. It's 1, 2, 3, third frame pause. So you don't have to be super tight on these. What matters more is just that you hit the cycle that gives Tails the right boost. And so pause hover, and you know you're in good shape if Tails's cannon is like level with or peaking above the top of this canister here. As long as you've got that, you're good. The setup will work. There might be slight fluctuations depending on how good your pause hover is, but for the most part, from what I can tell, what I do works pretty much regardless, as long as you don't get like an absolutely terrible pause hover. So from here, what we want to do is we move around 1230 on this input display, and we're moving towards this red arrow here. And you basically want to line yourself up with it before the lock-ons that you released. Oh, I didn't actually say you release the lock-ons as you do the pause hover. So you just do the start of the pause hover, you release the B button, do the second half of the pause buffer. Just buffers the release. And that makes it so that this is consistently timed the same way every time. And so now what we want to watch, you can do this bufferless, but if you want to do it buffered, um, I find that it does actually help with consistency quite a lot. Where the fourth one that's going to blow up is always this one right here, where this yellow arrow is at the bottom. It's the right canister on the left cylinder pillar. And so I'm watching and waiting to see that blow up right there. And so as soon as I see the shot make contact with that and blow up, even if I don't see the pillar moving left yet, I know that's my benchmark. That's the whole reason I'm buffering here. And you want to buffer for seven frames. 6 frames from the explosion. You'll see the shot make contact, and then the explosion is the second frame. But I guess it's the first frame of the thing actually falling down. Um so 6 frames from the first frame of the explosion. So just a tenth, basically. And this whole time you're holding up. But after that 6, 7 frames, you release A, drop, and hold 1130 on your input. I've blown up the input display for readability purposes here. While it's moving, it might be a little clunky to read. It should be helpful for people watching on smaller screens. But yeah, you buffer this angle change as you buffer your release. And from here, make sure this is the angle you're holding once you're actually landed. You can go a little further over and be okay, but I find that this is the ideal angle for getting the skew, because you need to make sure that here, I'm going to see if I can frame advance to a frame where we're not buffered so you can see it more. Here we go. Oh, that's some pixels. Okay, there we go. So you can see in this, Tails is face just about completely down, and he's like, so say this is perpendicular with him, This is going down the pillar directly, and so out would be facing this way. And you can see he's faced quite a bit further right than there. He's faced this way instead of this way. And this is what you want. You want him to be basically facing towards the road. But once we get off of here, we're going to have to do some angle adjustments so that he can swoop past the road to the left. But while we're on the pillar, you have to hold this angle, because this is what gives us the skew. If you go too far left, you lose the skew. So slowly, we buffer. Once we realize that we're safely off, we can adjust quite a bit further left. The skew is actually pretty strong once you've got it. You can go pretty far left, and you'd be surprised some of the ones you can save. This one was pretty far right, actually. And you can see I'm holding basically pure up left at this point. So holding further left until you can see Tails' fin here is like clipping into this, and his feet are past it. That's how I know at this point we're good to go. So now what we need to do is we just need to make sure that we get enough falling speed so that we stick to the wall. And so to do that, we just hold up and it spikes Tails at a lower angle. That way he sticks. From here, you're basically done. But if you keep holding directly up at this point, Tails will actually go too low and he'll sort of like skewed gravity float off of the wall and die. So once you see that you're actually stuck like this, you're good to go. You just want to adjust to that 11:30 angle, around 11 o'clock, sometimes depending on the situation. Want to adjust back to that angle, and then you unpause, and then you run. You can run up this way, or you can run down this way. I find this way tends to be nicer and give better cameras. A fail point that I noticed going up is that if you go up but not enough, it's pretty easy to actually just get stuck here where these, I don't know, oil tanks are. And if you do that, Tails immediately just snaps back to the regular ground. Obviously, we don't want that. So I prefer to go low. This looks scary, but even with this crazy camera, as long as you're holding about that like 11:30, 11 o'clock angle, you're chilling. And once you've passed the bridge, we need to start adjusting our angle and thinking about the dismount. Because from here, we've got to start making our way up to avoid this fence here. So you can see I've moved to up left. And so you move to up left to dodge that. There's two different cameras that this final area will give. And I'll tab over to my other PB in a second to show you the other one too. But you play them both the exact same way, even though the camera is radically different. Because for whatever reason, Tails actually controls just about the same here. So once we're past this, we want to keep adjusting further left. This camera is actually a little nicer, even though it looks a little weird, because we can clearly see where the invisible wall stops. It's where the bridge stops, right here where this ramp is. This is where the invisible wall stops. Now, vertically, it goes quite a bit higher than that ramp. And so that's what we're abusing to get up to the area where we'll make the cycle. So you want to adjust further left to around this 10 o'clock area. I think you can go even a little sharper. And as I said in my previous video, I find that pause hovers are a bit too cumbersome here because you can't tell where vertically you're going to pop off of the wall. But if you just use this hover strat and you buffer it, you can consistently tell when you're popping off the wall and you get a good hover. Um, I practiced this a lot on GameCube before going into runs, and I haven't messed up this strat once since actually taking it to runs, so I think that's a good sign. But you move to about this 10 o'clock angle, and ideally you start buffering or you time it. You can even go further. You can see I'm going to like 9 o'clock here. I'm like going super sharp, trying to make sure that I get that height because you can be pretty greedy with this before tail starts to pop off. And as soon as you see tails start to pop off, right there, you'll notice the angle change. So see between this one, still on the wall, still on the wall, popped off. And as soon as you see that, whenever you're doing your buffering, if you're doing it, you do the second half of a pause hover. So you don't do a start, you just do start A while still holding this like 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock angle. And if you do that, you still get a big pop of height like you did a pause hover, even though you're not actually doing a pause hover. And then from there, just hover over. And you can see this one got me so much height that I easily managed to even go over this fence. It doesn't matter for making the cycle, it's just flex, I guess. I just had that much extra height. All right.
Hold up.
So you can see here, we get the same camera at the start, but the camera snaps closer here in the second half. And now we have this camera instead. And one thing that's nice about this camera is you get a better vertical view of where you're going, or I guess a better horizontal view of where you're going. Um, but you lose out on the easy visual cue of the ramps to show you where the wall ends. But even so, you do this basically the same way. We curve up to dodge this fence, and then start moving to that 10 o'clock as soon as we've crossed the fence. Spike it up, and then buffer until you see tails start to droop like that. Right there.
Yes.
And then second half of a pause hover. And then you make it. And that should cover about everything. That's, yeah, the setup in its entirety and the dismount. I'm in the Discord. Let me know if you have questions. Otherwise, luck wall running.